A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express Papers Chandigarh edition. Today is 7th of December. Now let us quickly look at the news topics. So today I have started straight away with the opinion section. So mentioned that. So yesterday we had an article that India will be the third largest economy by 2030. So editorial on the same is there. And besides some of the opportunities, some of the challenges that India has. So that has mentioned. Plus, I have some additional content. So that you should refer to because this topic is repeatedly asked in GS3 paper. Important topic. Then India-Italy ties. So we have an article on that opinion and some of the key initiatives. So this can be prepared for prelims. Okay. Then we have the interview of CII President. So basically an overview on the Indian economy. So that we have. Then in the explainer section, we have an explanation of the recent controversy surrounding the NMC logo, National Medical Commission logo. So it has the image of Dhanvantri. So there is some controversy. Now, as far as we know, Dhanvantri is the god of Ayurveda. He was an important medical practitioner. So Dhanvantri, Charaka, and Sushruta, other medical professionals which are important. So that we will briefly study. Then propulsion module, the Chandrayaan 3, which carried the Vikram lander, it is tracing its path back to the Earth orbit. So that they are able to achieve. Now, before moving ahead, I want to tell you we have our Telegram channel by the name IS Primus. The link is in the description box. I am sharing current affairs based MCQ for practice. And besides news updates, some important reference material, so that is also shared. Now coming to the first news. So we could jump into this one. So here, the discussion is on the recently introduced bill known as Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Amendment Bill. So this is the first bill. And the second bill that was introduced was Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill. So this bill basically deals with two things. So one, it says it expands the size of the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly from 83 to 90. So that has been done. And it reserves 7 seats for scheduled caste and 9 seats for scheduled tribes. So it also provides for reservation. So see 83 to 90, so 7 additional seats have been added, which are reserved seats. Further, it says that Lieutenant Governor can nominate 2 members of the Kashmiri migrant community to the Legislative Assembly. And one of the nominated members must be a woman. Fine. So this is it. Then with regards to Punjab governor who was not acting on the bills, so 3 bills particularly, the Gurdwaras bill, the Punjab University laws, and the Punjab Police Amendment Bill. So the governor was not acting on it. They went to the Supreme Court, the state government, and eventually the governor acts. Now, with regards to when a bill reaches the governor and the governor taking action, it is provided for in Article 200. So either he may give his assent, he may withhold his assent, or he may send it to the president for its consideration of the bill to the president. And after that, what the president would do, that comes under Article 201 of the Constitution. Okay, so 200 and 201 we have seen. Now briefly, there's 3 laws also, the proposals of a law bill. So the first one is about the telecast of proceedings from the Harminder Sahib Gurdwara, Golden Temple. So that's the first thing. The second one is with regards to and the governor being the chancellor. So they want to replace the governor from its role as the chancellor to the CM. So CM playing the role of the chancellor. And the third one is Punjab Police Amendment Bill. It concerns the appointment of the DGP. So according to a Supreme Court ruling, the DGPs were supposed to be appointed by the procedure, such as in which the UPSC reviews several IPS officers of the state. It shortlists 3 candidates, and the state chief minister can select either of these 3 candidates. So they want to bypass this mechanism whereby UPSC involvement is not there. Rather, they say that there should be a state-appointed independent commission which recommends and appoints the state DGP, police commissioner. So we're just scrolling. Chandigarh recorded more sudden deaths than 6 UTs. So again, with regards to the NCRB data, now sudden deaths not very clear, but deaths which is not due to an illness, but a sudden death. And it is traumatic to the, obviously, sudden death, especially traumatic to the family of the person, victim. Here there is mention of accidental deaths, deaths due to drowsing, drug overdose, poisonous gas. So all those are mentioned. Besides, there is also mention of heart attack, brain hemorrhage, etc. Now, one reason of Chandigarh having more of these sudden deaths is more reportage in the state. So that could be in the UT. So that could be the reason. Okay. In Gurgaon, there is this builder known as Chintals. So an accident took place wherein from the 6th floor, the debris fell onto the 1st floor. It fell onto the 1st floor, and thereby it raised concerns about the safety of the high-rise buildings that they created. Audits were done and they found certain blocks, these blocks to be unsafe, and thereby they should be evacuated. Okay, so this thing happened. So now this evacuation thing is taking place. Now, not very sure, but this can be part of your disaster management, maybe, right? From that perspective, that it can be seen that there is an exercise, you have been tasked to oversee this exercise. What are the steps or the precautions that you would take? Right? So something to that effect may be asked. There is a mention of an artist or a painter from the modern history, 1913 to 1941. The date is wrongly mentioned. It is 1913 to 1941. So she is Amrita Shergill. She is of the descent of India and Hungary. So she was in Hungary basically. And she influenced generations of painters to come, and she placed this last on 1941. Okay. So yeah, so she is there in the news, and she is known to she the unique style of painting, innovative, experimental style of painting, and one of the greatest painters of her time. Now we come to the opinion section, editorial opinion. So first one that we are covering is Telangana election. So some of the key challenges that the new CM is going to have, and not political, basically we're talking about from policy point of view. So first he has to fulfill the 6 guarantees that the Congress made, and fiscally they may be very, very difficult. He may have to balance populism and pragmatism, right? They came on the pretext of populist schemes. So they said once coming to power, they will have farm loan waivers to the tune of rupees 2 lakh crores. Now, does the state have such sort of finances? Right. Next, free travel to women in RTC buses, the public transport buses. Monthly financial assistance to the women would be given. Then rupees 16,000 per acre under Ritu Bharosa. 16,000 per acre would be provided. At present, we have the Ritu Bandhu scheme, which was brought in by the previous government, in which rupees 5,000 per acre were given to the farmer for cultivation. 5,000 per acre per season. So this is to be expanded, increased to 16,000. Somehow seems justified given that when the scheme came up, right, over the years, inflation and all those things have also taken place. So the outlay should also increase. So the main thing is announcement of the schemes. Now, are they financially tenable or not? What will be the bearing on the state's finances? So that's it. Yes, he will have political challenges. This article, the bigger and better. So this mainly concerns with the recent projections of S&P Global was there yesterday also. Then IMF in its World Economic Outlook, which says that India will be the third largest country economic in terms of GDP. So India will be the third largest by 2030. That is what S&P says. IMF says 2028. So at present, India is fifth largest with US, China, Germany, Japan. Right. So after that, we have the in India. So India will be the third largest. So US, China, and then India. So this is, perceived as something that is inevitable. It is going to happen. Now, main thing is, where are we in terms of per capita income? So with the rise of GDP, the per capita income will also increase. So from 2612, it will increase to 3985. This data we are getting from October World Economic Outlook database. So from here, we have gotten this data. Now, if you compare it with US and China, we are far behind in per capita GDP. But still, this is a significant jump to take place. Right? In 5 years, it's a significant jump. Okay. Now, even per capita income is not a good indicator. It does not tell us if there is inclusive development taking place or not, or inclusive growth taking place or not. That is, all the sectors of the population, all the people are benefiting because of the GDP rise. Now, one of the ways of achieving inclusive growth or inclusive development is job-led growth model. That is GDP increasing and increases, and that in the same proportion or in a better proportion, the jobs are also increasing. And one of the ways of doing that is promoting the manufacturing sector. In India's case, agriculture is having the bulk of the population, but the productivity is what? 14, depends on how you calculate, 12 to 17% of the GDP. Employment potential is not so much. They are having disguised unemployment actually. So in India's case, we need to promote non-farm jobs so that new workforce that is coming, they are absorbed, and at the same time, we are able to absorb the ones from farm to the non-farm sector. According to McKinsey, this is something that you have to quote. According to McKinsey, from 2023 to 2030, India needs to create 90 million jobs. 90 million jobs. Somewhere the estimate comes to 15 to 12 million jobs. So 12 million jobs is what you will normally read. So 12 million jobs per year have to be created so that it can absorb 60 million of additional workforce and 30 million of those coming from farm to non-farm sector, so that we are able to mobilize them to the non-farm sector. So 90 million jobs have to be created by 2030. You can keep dividing it by 7. 12 into 7 is 84. So rough estimate is 12 million jobs. Now, where are we on that front? India's new manufacturing policy or national manufacturing policy suggested we need to increase the share of manufacturing sector from, according to different estimates are there. Some say 14% is the share of manufacturing. Some say it is 17% as a percentage of GDP. I'll go with 17. So this has to increase to 25% as share of GDP. This has to be done. Now for this purpose, and again, so this has to be done, fine. Now for this purpose, we have, the government is going with the idea of Make in India campaign. Then the PLI schemes. especially in the sunrise sectors like electronics manufacturing, semiconductor fabrication, toys, right? So number of places PLI schemes are there, even to promote design in the electronic sector. So design linked incentive scheme is there. So we have taken a number of initiatives, and the PLI scheme is largely seen as a successful initiative. But are these enough? There are still challenges present over here. On one hand, we say that it is the right time for India to move towards the manufacturing sector because we have the favorable demographic dividend. The mean age of India at the moment is 30 or 32 years. So that is the mean age of India. Right. So the mean age is around this much. And so we have a majority of the youthful population. China is having an aging population. Japan, all of them have an aging population. In fact, in China, there is a shift taking place. One, because of the demographic changing, people have gotten well off. So that is one thing. The wages are now on the higher side. And China, which is the manufacturer of the world, is now getting increasingly unpopular. Plus, it is also witnessing a slowdown. So there is a possibility of emergence of an other alternative, which can be India. India has almost all the attributes, but still certain challenges remain. And yes, one thing that we talk with regards to China is because China is getting unpopular because of the slowdown, because of the capital control, or because of COVID regulations or US-China tensions, the multinationals are favoring a policy known as China plus one strategy. That is, they are seeing an alternative to China. So they say China is inevitable, we have to be in China, but an other alternative, that which can be India. But that does not mean that cannot be another country like Vietnam, Philippines, right? It can be anyone. So India has to take advantage of the situation. It's the opportune time where the mean age is around 30 years. Is the right time. But it seems we may miss the bus. Why? Today we are in an increasingly interlinked world, right? And India is not part of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or India is not part of Trans-Pacific Partnership. That means these countries in this grouping have favorable custom duty, favorable movements of goods from one place to another. So entire value chain can be placed across different countries. And if you trade outside of this, if the trading takes place out of this, then these countries will not entertain tax benefits which are given to the countries belonging to this bloc. So India is not part of this because India fears that India will lose market access to these countries. Domestic manufacturers will suffer. Okay. And further, what makes it worse for India is that these countries have a norm known as rules of origin. That is, the subsidies and the tax benefits will only be provided if the entire value chain belongs to these countries and not coming from the outside. Fine, so that is the idea. So that is one challenge. And then we have a very less share of formally skilled people. We don't say we don't have skilled people in India, but formally skilled people who are easily recruitable. So it's roughly 4% actually. So, but some estimates will tell you 2%, some will tell you 5%. But this is much lesser as compared to any other country. So 4.69 according to this estimate, according to the HDR, Human Development Report 2020. Now this says only 21.2% of Indian labor is skilled. Here it says India has a low proportion of skilled workforce. Fine. So that's what I'm saying. There is a confusing data overall we have. 21 is fine. I don't know. Okay, moving to next article. We are seeing this union government is extending the tenure of civil servants. For example, enforcement director, his tenure was increased. Commissioner of Delhi previously, his CBI who was moved to Delhi, his tenure was again increased and then extended also. So here we have an observation from a former IS officer, health secretary, former chief secretary of Delhi. So she says two points over here. So one is that the retirement age of 60 years is inadequate given the increased lifespan, etc. In fact, previously till 1998, it was 58 years. This was extended to 60 years. Now 60 years is also less. If we look at OECD countries, it is 64 years. So that change has to be incorporated. Plus there is so much of experience that person has gotten. The person, if they can work, we should utilize that kind of skill sets. The other point she says is that we need to remove the dead wood, the civil servants who have joined the services but who are not working, who are not productive. So we should remove the dead wood using FR 56J, some rule that is there by which the president can remove those officials. Then partners in uncertain times, India-Italy relationship. Okay, so besides the melody, hashtag melody, there are other things also in India-Italy relationship. So one is, first he talks about, first of all, who's he? He's the ambassador of Italy to India and Nepal. So to cut the ice, he's talking about Indo-Pacific region, that they're concerned about Indo-Pacific rules-based international order. So that statement is said. Now, coming to the main point, they say that India and Italy can collaborate on the maritime domain, indicative that Italy has a good shipping industry. Italy can work and collaborate with India. It can export its ship and the expertise in the shipping domain. India has its Sagarmala project also. So shipbuilding is also part of the Sagarmala initiative. Then there is the G20, which proposed the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. Now, if you look at the map of Italy, or map of Europe actually, so Italy is in the southern Mediterranean Europe. So IMEC will pass through Italy, right? So Italy has to be one of the important pillars of the IMEC. Then in the domain of space, ISRO has done good work. Chandrayaan-3 is there. So Italian space agency known as ASI and ISRO to work together and collaborate on several research missions, etc. Then there is a mention of Blue Raman project. So this project is basically laying down submarine cables, or submarine fiber cables, so internet connectivity. So Blue Raman project. So it will have countries that will connect France to India via Italy, Greece, Israel, Jordan, Saudi, right? So all these countries are mentioned. Next, we come to the Palestinian violence that is taking place. Gazans flee south, right? So all this violence is taking place, fine. US is going to support Israel and provide them arms supplies. Their arm industry is benefiting, so why not? Next, Putin, Russia's president, meets Saudi, who is an US ally. But Saudi Arabia's leader says that Putin is a dear friend, right? So dear friend, so that Ukraine war relations are not going to affect. That is what is indicative of that by that statement. Putin will also host Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi in Moscow. So one is we get to know about this meet, fine, and this is mainly with dealing with oil. And the other one that we see is Iranian president being meeting. It means Russia's isolation is not being very effective now. Now let's come to the agenda of Saudi and Putin. What was the agenda? So agenda is simple. Oil prices are falling down, right? Russia is not part of the OPEC. It is part of the OPEC Plus. So OPEC is led by Saudi Arabia. And Russia is a major partner, major exporter of the oil. It has an interest in keeping the oil prices afloat or high. Or high to such an extent that there is a demand for oil. The consumers are also not affected very much. Okay. Now together, Saudi Arabia and Russia together, they manage 1/5 of the global oil output, right? So if both countries are on same terms, they can manage the supplies single-handedly or combinedly, both these can handle, and thereby the oil prices can be maintained or kept afloat. It can be stopped from falling down. So we always refer to these oil prices. So $82 per barrel to, or $83 per barrel, it has come down to $78 per barrel. Next economy news, oil 78.44. Okay, so first article, negative outlook for global banks, says Moody for the year 2024. And why this bad outlook? It's basically the rate hikes that are taking place, inflation and rate hikes, and thereby it is difficult for banks to lend money. Lending is a difficult exercise, and lending is one of the ways by which the banks earn revenue. So it's a difficult time period for the banks. Next, Centre seeks nod for spending, for extra spending of rupees 58,378 crores. Right. Actually, it is much more than that. It is additional spending of rupees 1.29 lakh crore. Okay. Anyways, we're not concerned with so much with that. What we are concerned is supplementary demand for grants. What are the different types of grants? And going by the recent years polity papers, mains also GS2, they may ask you this also, like what are the different types of grants? Explain that. And then maybe there is a tail question also. So in Lakshmikant, you may have come across these terms. So we have the following types of grants. So supplementary grants, additional, excess, vote of credit, and exceptional and token grant. Supplementary grant is when budget has already given you some fund for a purpose, let's say Narega. Now you want additional money or you want to supplement your funds. So that is supplementary grants. Additional grants is when you didn't contemplate a situation. So budget did not announce you, so additional grants. Is a grant has an additional grant for expenditure upon new service not contemplated in budget. Excess grant is when you have spent additionally. So you have already spent and now you are seeking money. Supplementary grant was which was allocated, you feel more money would be required. For example, Prime Minister has announced a slew of schemes, an extension of the scheme, so more money is required. So money would be insufficient. Here the money has already been spent. Then we have vote of credit. It is granted for meeting an unexpected demand upon the resources of India, which is of indefinite character of service. So we don't know how much money would be required. Unexpected situation is there. Exceptional grant is for a special purpose and forms no part of the current service or any financial year. Okay. Next is token grant. Token grant is something like OR rupee when it was introduced by Congress. So 1 rupees or a small token amount is set, and later on the money is released through appropriation. Okay, so these were the different types of grants. Now moving forward, we have interview of the CII president. So he represents the Indian corporate sector. So his views. Normally these people will speak positively about the economy and the government. Now coming forward. Early signs of crowding in private investment scenes. Another way of saying is the government is borrowing more money for the subsidy and all those things. So of course, the government is borrowing more money. The fiscal deficit is going to breach 5.9% target. So let's say with all the borrowings, the banks do not have adequate money to lend to the corporates and the other private sector because the money is being crowded out to the government. So that is what is crowding. And this has been asked in the prelims also. Okay. Now, when this is effective, of course, it will reduce the share of private capital also. But at the same time, if the government has to spend more on infra creation, etc., so the money will come from here only. Give or take, it's one of the similar kind of a thing. Okay, next, domestic demand is resilient. Now, previously we heard that the financial assets have come down and consumer sentiment is on the lower side. Anyway, so he's saying domestic demand is resilient, but he's also highlighting weak demand, especially in rural areas. Okay, high in headline inflation is coming down, so that is a positive for the economy. Further, employment-wise, data is favorable. Unemployment rate has fallen to 3.2% from previous 6.1% in 2017-18. Okay. Next, Sensex Nifty saw factors driving the rally. Okay, so one was the elections because of which the Sensex Nifty has gone up. Other is that foreign institutional investors, people who had exited the market, they are re-entering the markets. And I think 2 months from now, maybe, and maybe Diwali, and after that, the markets may fall down. Oh, okay. Next, crude oil is also favorable. It is saying 70. Now we come to the next issue concerning the controversy surrounding the logo of NMC, National Medical Commission. So if you look closely, you can see the image of God Dhanvantri over here. So doctors are saying, some of the doctors, that the doctors are supposed to treat irrespective of caste, class or religion. The image of God Dhanvantri is depicting a religion which may not be right. Okay. Now, an official concerned who says that if the logo of doctors can be caduceus, a staff surrounded by two serpents. You must have seen this. If so, if Greek symbol of Greek mythology can be there, why not Indian? Logical point. Okay. Now moving on. So we have God Dhanvantri, who is known as the god of Ayurveda. He was a medical professional and seen as a avatar of God Vishnu. Then we have Charak Samhita. He is associated with, again, with Ayurveda, the medicine, and he's seen to be as a descendant of Charak. Then we have, Dhanvantri. Then we have Sushruta. He is known as the father of Indian surgery, Sushruta. Right, so that's it. So I have put it over here, Dhanvantri, Charak and Sushruta. So he believed to be an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. The Charak is principal contributors of Ayurveda, and he wrote Charak Samhita. His work is Charak Samhita, foundational text of Indian medicine. And then we have Sushruta Samhita, which is concerning Indian text on medical and surgery. Last, Chandrayaan-3 propulsion module traces its steps to Earth orbit. So rocket from Earth takes the Chandrayaan, Vikram lander and rover. Okay, so everything disintegrates. Ultimately, we reach the moon, and the moon, it is carrying the propulsion module, so that the lander Vikram, so lander and Pragyan rover can be easily be dropped onto the surface of the moon. So there was a propulsion module. Rather than having a full-fledged orbiter satellite, they carried a propulsion module. Okay, so what happened was everything went off successfully, but because of the preciseness of ISRO, the propulsion module had 150 kgs of fuel left. And the propulsion module was orbiting around the moon. It was also taking the images of the moon. Okay. Now, since it had surplus fuel, the scientists on the Earth, ISRO, they felt that why not try and attempt and get this back to the Earth's orbit and eventually Earth. So what they're doing is they have the excess fuel. This is orbiting. So using the same technique, using it as a slingshot, it orbits, and then using it as a slingshot and enters into the Earth orbit. So that steps are taken. So this was an unplanned experiment, but because an opportunity arises, because of the fuel, so that they are doing. So this is a significant step. This maneuver matters because it will provide for future missions, gravity-assisted flybys across celestial bodies, as well as avoiding uncontrolled crashing of propulsion module on moon surface. So that can be done. So that's it from today's news analysis. Thank you for streaming in to our channel, IS Primers.